You can use criticism a lot of different ways. There's criticism from people that actually care for you, and they see you doing something that is not good, and they tell you about it. And I value that. There are people that do not value that. There are people that find that offensive. There are people that find that you don't approve of me, and they run away from it. There are also people that take that, and it might smart for a moment, right? It might hurt for a moment. They go, he might be right, or she might be right. Maybe I should. There's a reason why they put their neck on the line to say this. They probably weren't trying to be a jerk. They probably just had the guts to say something to me. So I value that, because I just get so tired of people that just tell you what you want to hear.
All right, well, welcome to the Carla Rand Show again, and we have Vincent Pugliese on with me. And Vincent, I'm so happy to talk to you. We started chatting, and I was just like, I could talk to this guy all day. Like, there's, talking business and life, and it was such a good conversation. And after I talked to you, I was like, I got to have you on the podcast, because there's so much like nuggets of truth and just good stuff that you have to offer and things that you can share. So thank you so much for being on the Carla Rand Show today.
Thanks for having me. It's just an honor and a pleasure. And we had 2 conversations, I believe, and each one of them was like, this could keep going.
I know.
Let's just do it for other people to hear.
Yeah, totally. I was like, yeah, if other people could hear this would be powerful. So Vincent, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a coach, but who are you? Where did you grow up? Just give us a little bit of context to who you are before we get into some of the like life learning opportunities and things.
Yeah, I grew up in New York, in Queens, but mostly on Long Island, and was a complete and utter, I would say, failure. It wasn't the way I would describe it. It was the way my teachers would have described it. Like, I was, there wasn't a voted least likely to succeed, but there was. I would have been on the ballot. There's no doubt about it. I learned that I graduated high school on the last day before graduation. So while everybody else was planning their college, I didn't know what I was doing in the summertime. I might be going to summer school. I didn't care for it very much. I knew very early on that I didn't fit in. I knew I wasn't dumb. I don't know why I knew that, because nothing in school let me know that, but I knew I could be witty and I can come up with ideas and I could figure things out. They just weren't the things that my teachers wanted me to figure out. So there was some confidence that came from that. Yet for the next 5 years, I floundered. Got in as much trouble as you can imagine. Dropped out of college 5 times, 5 different majors, different schools, mostly community colleges, because I couldn't really afford or wasn't accepted to anything else, and was arrested, everything you can imagine. And then finally just had kind of an awakening where after I was arrested for stealing, I had a nightmare when I was 22 years old that I got caught again by this old lady at this drive-in that I worked, like a drive-through convenience store. And I still remember her face. I can see it right now. And she's like, I got you. I remember her pointing at me. And I woke up in a sweat, deep sweat. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I never thought about that. Even in high school, like, people worry about their life. I never worried about it. I just had fun. And so I went downstairs and I moved back in with my parents. And I didn't get along with my parents, as you can imagine from my history. And my dad came downstairs and he said to me, what are you doing? I said, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I completely lost, working at a convenience store. My friend, people I went to school with already graduated from college and starting real jobs. And he said to me, well, you like traveling, you like sports, because that's all I did was watch sports and listen to music. And he was like, taking pictures. Why don't you become a photographer? Why don't you take a class and become a sports photographer? Like, is that even a job? Like, do you get paid to like be on the field and do exactly what you? So I was like, I have nothing to lose, which is, I think, a lot of people should say more often in life, because they feel like they have, all this, I have my degree and I have all this, I can't try what I want. So it's the greatest spot to be in. I'm 22 years old. I can go buy a ticket to a game every night of the week in New York for cheap and bring my camera and just take pictures and meet people and then go up and introduce myself to the photographers and get either blown off or get helped, right? And that's what I did every night, 5 nights, 6 nights a week. I went to these stadiums and I learned and I picked their brains and I studied. And all of a sudden I'm like, I like studying. And I'm becoming good at this. And I went back to college and I was the best student the 6th time I went back, because it was the first time that I actually cared. And then I went and got an internship with the National Hockey League and with the World Wrestling Federation. And I got jobs. And then I went back to school in Ohio University and I wound up winning the William Randolph Hearst National Photojournalism Championship, the top college student in the country. And it's funny because nobody ever told me that this was a career when I was in school. And when I was in school, if they would have told me this, I would have probably been the best student in the school. I would have given it all. But being that they told me I had to be an accountant or wear a tie, I was the worst student in school.
Mm.
And so that confidence that came from, I can figure stuff out, really led the path to what became a 22-year career, which I left about 4 years ago. But that was really the impetus of kind of my growth.
It's so amazing because like there's so much truth to that. And that's really my message too. It's like, find something you love to do. And no matter how old you are, no matter when you start, no matter what, like how you get there. I mean, even for me, like I'm a teacher. I'm a music English teacher, but I'm a fitness and nutrition coach, right? So it's like, how did that happen? Well,
Yeah.
Like I just loved doing the fitness and nutrition. So I just kind of made that happen. And I kind of left the other stuff after because I just didn't enjoy it as much. So I think it's, like you'll make it happen if you love it,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you will. And people will tell you can't do it. And people told me I can't. I had a friend, my mother's friend, a friend of a friend tried to mentor me for a moment. And he had a portrait studio. And I went to explain to him that I wanted to be like on the field at the Super Bowl. And which I eventually wound up doing. And he discouraged me. Not only discouraged me, he put me down. He goes, forget that. Everybody wants to do that. It's impossible. He goes, what you should do is this: still lifes and portraits in his little studio in Jericho, New York. And I'm like, that sounds like torture to me. That sounds like a job.
Yeah.
So I basically told him, like, forget you, but not as nice words. And I, went on my way. And I remember when I used him as motivation. I don't do this anymore in my life. I think I've grown up a little bit, but he was my motivation for 6 years I can do this. And I remember being in New Orleans in 2002, and I'm walking through the tunnel of the New Orleans Superdome, and it's the Super Bowl, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl ever that he won. And I'm credentialed on the field, and I'm walking through the tunnel, the bright lights of the Super Bowl, and he's the first person I thought about. The guy that told me I couldn't do it. And I walk out there, and U2 did the halftime show. It's one of the most historic Super Bowls, and I'm there photographing it on top of it. And it just goes to show people can discourage you, but if you can, use them as motivation to why you can do it. And then thank them later. And that's what I did. It's like, I didn't get mad at him. I said, your lack of belief in me actually caused me to do this. So thank you. I wasn't even angry, and he was appreciative because he didn't know.
Yeah.
But it allowed me to kind of, do what I needed to do to get that confidence and that thing going. So it was a really interesting story.
Yeah, that's happened in my life too, Vince. Like it's like the more you tell me I can't do it, the more I'm probably going to want to do it. So if you really want to motivate me, don't tell me I can't. Just tell me I can, and it'll be easy for me, and then I probably won't do it. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think everyone's kind of motivated in different ways. But if you're not naturally wired to be motivated by people that criticize you, then it could be very difficult, right? So I think it's like, if you are being criticized, take that and say, hey, can I use it for fuel? Instead of being like, oh, they're probably right, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
A lot of people don't like criticism. And I think in this culture today, most people don't.
Yeah.
I think it's really kind of sad because you can use criticism a lot of different ways. There's criticism from people that actually care for you, and they see you doing something that is not good, and they tell you about it. And I value that. There are people that do not value that. There are people that find that offensive. There are people that find that you don't approve of me, and they run away from it. There are also people that take that, and it might smart for a moment, right? It might hurt for a moment. They go, he might be right, or she might be right. Maybe I should. There's a reason why they put their neck on the line to say this. They probably weren't trying to be a jerk. Mm-hmm. They probably just had the guts to say something to me. So I value that, because I just get so tired of people that just tell you what you want to hear. Oh, you want to go do it. Go do it. They don't, there's nothing in it for them to like, why? What is your purpose behind doing this? You want to make more and more money. Can you tell me why? And a lot of times they don't really need it or want it. They want to impress somebody else, or they're trying to make up for a shortcoming somewhere else. And then they go, well, I really don't care about that. What do you really care about? And then they tell you, and then they go, well, thank you so much for doing that, because otherwise I would have done a whole bunch of things I didn't want to do just to prove something wrong to something I don't even care about. Didn't make any sense. Yeah. So criticism, I think I look for it. As long as the person has my best interest, it doesn't offend me. And I wish more people could see that.
Yeah. So I think like self-evaluation, or, getting other people to evaluate you is important too. Because a lot of people don't feel comfortable just coming out and saying stuff. Yeah.
Totally.
But Vince, tell me about your book. It's called Freelance to Freedom.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing that the reason that you came up with that title was because of how you were able to have a lot of freedom in your life doing the things that you loved with your photos and stuff, correct? Can you
Mhm.
tell me a little bit more about the book? What's sort of the premise of it and what caused you to want to write it?
Yeah, the premise of it, I never set out to be an author. I still don't consider myself an author. I still don't consider myself a writer. But when I went to write it, I knew my mom would buy it and my wife would read it, right? I knew two people would read it. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a start. But I had people asking me questions. Once our photography, it was my wife and I, we started a photography business together. We went to college together. So not long after that story I told you, we met and we've been together ever since. And we worked together. We started a business together. So it's the two of us. And we started getting all these questions like, how did you do this? And I'm like, how do we do what? Like, you seem to be successful at your photography career. You have time for your family. You can travel for at times months at a time, and which we would do every winter. We'd leave for 3 or 4 months, and people wanted to know how. So I started writing these stories down just to kind of answer them. And little by little, it's like that works and that works. And then maybe we have a book here after about 20,000 words. And there was nothing to say, oh, here's how to publish a book. And so I wrote it, and basically the first half of the book was our story of, kind of what I just told you about earlier, but into like getting into debt, becoming, American, like getting a job at a newspaper. And now I'm not in control of my time anymore, which I always loved the freelance world because I controlled my time. Now all of a sudden I kind of sold out for benefits and for security. And what happened was around 32, Elizabeth got pregnant with our first son. And I was making $15 an hour at a newspaper, a full-time job, $32,000 a year. I was making, but I love my job. I just shot the Super Bowl, just won these awards, big paid, and went in for my evaluation to get my big raise because we had a kid. I won these. We were about to have a kid. I won all these awards, and they gave me a 3% raise. And they told me like, you were the top photographer at the paper this year, winning all this stuff, but we could only afford 3%. And I left the office completely demoralized, because I'm like, we have a baby coming in a month and I can't afford this baby. And my wife wants to stay home and I don't know what to do. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that spot. I went home and I called my dad. I was like, can I work for you? Just do side work for his business so I can make some money just to pay for diapers and formula. And he said, no. So now my dad's rejecting me too. I'm like, this is brutal. What? And I remember just the cold sweat of like, what am I going to do? And he said something to me that changed my life. 10 years after the last thing that changed my life that he said, I've been trying to tell you this, but you haven't listened. He said, maybe you'll listen now. And he got my attention. And he said, you've really become a good photographer. You weren't before, but you have settled for security and benefits and health insurance. He goes, you settled for $15 an hour. He said, you can do anything you want. You could shoot pro sports on assignment. You could do weddings. You could do commercial, corporate, anything you want. You can make as much money as you want. You can control your time and you're settling. That's a really hard thing to hear from your father. Usually it's the opposite. Settle down, get something. He completely just laid me out for criticism, right? And I just, at that moment, I went and I got the phone book and I called different photographers to see if I could work with them. They all said no. I took the phone book, I threw it against the wall. Do you remember a phone book? Mm-hmm. And I said, forget it. I said, the whole saying, like, if you can't beat them, join them. I was like, well, if you can't join them, we're going to beat them. I called my wife and I said, we're starting a business. And she's like, what? So we're starting a photography business. How? I don't know, but we're starting. And she went and shot a wedding for free the next week. I did one for very cheap. And a year later, we had a year and a half later, we had a 6-figure photography business. And then we took that money, paid off all of our debt, our house included, quit our jobs 3 years later, and that was freedom. Mm. So from there, all these stories kept piling up. So that's where people wanted to learn from. So that's where the book came from. And then, so the first half is my story. The second half is lessons how other people can do it through the phases. And then that led to a whole different part of our career.
So when it comes to Freelance to Freedom, would that be then just for photographers, or is that just kind of anybody that wants to go off and do their own thing?
No, it's based around photography because that was my life. But what I realized is the lessons learned are universal.
Right.
It's this photography are in some of the stories, but it's building a business, essentially freelance, and then to build something out where it's not. See, we're not freelance anymore. Now we have multiple streams of income, recurring income, things that we get paid when we don't, you do it one time and you get paid 1,000 times type of thing. But I think we need to learn the foundation through freelancing in terms of how to build a business and how to be involved with it. And then you learn from there. So that was the foundation of it. And then we've taken that to now grow on from that.
Okay, so somebody might be listening, Vince, and they might be like, "Oh man, he makes it sound so easy. I've been trying to do a business. It's not that easy. You got to learn marketing. You got to learn all this kind of stuff." How did you learn that kind of stuff, Vince? Because you do need to market yourself. You need to kind of know how to get yourself out there. That's a big part of it. And then, of course, you
Yeah.
need to do a good job.
Yeah.
But how did you learn that?
Well, I want to apologize if I made it sound easy, because it was not easy. It was not
Okay.
easy. I remember the first contract where somebody backed out on us. We signed this contract. We didn't know anything about contracts. We didn't know anything about retainers. So it was the biggest wedding we ever did. It was $3,500. And because we wanted it so badly, we had a $250 retainer to hold the date. And then the other 2 payments were due like 3 months beforehand. $250 we got, held a prime date. Three months before the wedding, we didn't get the second check. So I called the mother of the bride, who paid, 2 weeks later, said, "We haven't gotten paid, blah, blah, blah." She goes, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we had a family friend decide to do the wedding for us. We're not going to need you." And I'm like, "Well, we have a contract." And she said, "Well, I don't really care. We're not going to need you." And we were out $3,200 with an open date. And I said, "We need to learn something about contracts." And that's exactly how it went about 1,000 times over, with the mistakes that we made to figure it out. So I hope I didn't make it sound easy, because it wasn't. And if you read the book, you can tell it's certainly not easy. But what we learned is people like to be treated well. It's a very easy concept in business. Everybody focuses so much on funnels and email marketing, and all those things are important. But it really comes down to, how do you want to be treated and how do your customers want to be treated? And we always realize that going above and beyond and word of mouth marketing, as unsaleable as that is, was the greatest way we built our business by over delivering on our customers. That's all it was. We were personable with them. We cared about what they wanted. We paid attention to their needs and their wants. We were kind to them, and we were kind to their family and friends, and we cared, essentially. And then when we did that, so what we would do in terms of weddings, and anybody can do this, is over deliver, which doesn't take very much time, because all the wedding photographers in our we saw it. We saw their websites. They would leave right after. If anybody's been married, you have the first dance and you have the cake cutting, and then the real dancing starts. And every photographer said, "Well, once that starts, it all looks the same." So we leave. And we said, "Okay, well, there's a hole in the market right there," because we've been to weddings and crazy stuff happens in the last hour of a wedding. Brides get lifted on their shoulder. All types of stuff happen. And we said, "Well, there's a hole in the market right there. This is an important thing for your listeners, to find a hole in the market that other people aren't doing." So we said, we're staying to the end. We're staying till the lights come on. Why not? My kids are sleeping anyway. What am I going to do? Go home and watch Saturday Night Live? Like, what else am I going to do at 10:30 on a Saturday night after shooting a wedding? So what we did was we stayed. And then when those lights came on and the mother of the bride saw us still standing there, she's like, "You guys are the greatest photographers ever." They never even saw one of our pictures. They had no idea if we were the worst photographers, but we made them feel so good by being there till the end, that in that circle, during that wedding, their 3 other bridesmaids were like, "You're the best photographer. We're hiring you for our wedding." And they're like, "Okay." And then the next week we'd book a wedding. And this happened time again. And then all of a sudden our competition were getting mad at us because we were elevating and taking a lot of the work. So what we did was we put on our website called The Last Hour. And what we did was we took the best pictures from that last hour of the reception and we put it on there. And every other photographer couldn't compete with that because they wouldn't stay till then. So all of a sudden they all started staying till the end. So we changed the industry, because which made me feel good, because it made them do better work than what they were doing before. And they were all kind of complacent, and we kind of pushed that. Just because of that, literally had our business go to the top in our market. And we've done that, tried to do that with each of the businesses that we've done since then.
You talk about generosity too, Vince. I know you're writing a book, or you have written a book. Yes.
I'm writing a book. It's called Generosity is the Answer. So great lead in. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that book a little bit. Like, what made you want to write about generosity, and why is that so important to you?
Because I'm selfish. And I can say it out loud. I can say it like I'm naturally not a generous person. I hate to say it, but I'm like, the more I say it, the easier it is to come out.
Right. And
I could be like, it's just the truth. It's like I've always been self-involved. I always had my own goals, my big goals. What am I going to accomplish? Right. You get any of these planners, any of these, entrepreneurial planners. What are your top goals today? What are you going to accomplish? You. And it's so focused on selfish goals. So I started thinking about that. I'm like, I did very well in that area. I accomplished my selfish goals. but I didn't always make the best impression, right? I always it was about me. And what I realized is the people that I was studying, the people like Seth Godin, the people like Bob Berg, it wasn't about them just accomplishing their goals. You know, a lot of people it was, but the people I really admired, it wasn't. It was about how they were serving. Now, I did some of that. We did some of that, but really the heart of it was, what are we going to get? I'm just being honest at the very beginning. So what I learned as studying these people, like generosity was always the thing that it came down to. Over delivering, like we learned some of it, but creating content that is so valuable, way more valuable than anybody's paying for, right? Your podcast right here. I imagine nobody's paying for it, but if they're listening, like, well, this is tremendous value Call is giving us, and I appreciate that. It's a great way to build a business by over delivering on anything. And so the generosity factor, what I realized is the selfishness is what took people down, because they got so wrapped up in what they wanted that they didn't cause goodwill in their network. They didn't make people rave about them. But the people that were generous, the people that had their generous goals on top, and there's the way I describe it. Your generous goals should go on top of your selfish goals. And meaning, say you want to make $150,000 next year. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like Bob Berg says, it's like, there's nothing, how to make more money is not a bad question. It's just a bad first question. It's a second question. Okay, I want to make 150 grand. Okay, who are you serving? What are you doing? What are you being generous with that is going to be able to make that money for yourself? So if you say, I want to change the world in terms of fitness and health and nutrition, I want these changes in these people. You know what to do. Now, if you deliver on that, you deliver these products and these services and these results, it's invariable that you're going to get that money that you need to get. But it's not the number one goal. And I think the people that really focus on the money and their selfish goals are the ones that wind up feeling empty, because I've been there, and a lot of people I've talked to have been there. And when you get there, you go, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then you have to figure that out from there. And that's the harder conversation to have.
Yeah, it's so true what you're saying. Like, and it's amazing how when you just look to serve other people and you do things, freebies, or you do things like, and you're just generous, it seems like the money kind of looks after itself. It's kind of like if you're going to, you want to be really fit. If you just eat healthy and exercise, the weight loss and all that will kind of happen, the low blood pressure, like that'll all kind of happen. You don't need to be sitting there saying, I got to lose weight, I got to lose weight, I got to lose weight. You just need to do the right things. And I think that's similar to building a business. Just be generous, add value to people, and it kind of happens.
But it's hard to do that when you're desperate.
Yes.
And I've been there. Right? So people will come to me like, I need to make this amount of money right now. Right? That's the worst question, right? Because you're going to do everything out of desperation, and you're going to do it the wrong way usually. And if you can't do it the right way, go get a job. Seriously, go get a job, make your money, brainstorm your ideas, build it out, and do it the right way. But if you lose your equity, human equity with other people by trying to get under the table and do things the wrong way so you can make money, you'll develop a reputation in your industry, and it'll be hard to lose. So that the hard part is and I talk about finances a lot, because to me, financial freedom is not crazy wealth. And so many people think it is. And maybe it is for them, but for me, it's not. For me, it's not worrying about money. That's way different than, my net worth is $2 million so I can get the 4% rule and then retire. I have no interest in retiring. What am I going to do? Play golf? That sounds boring to me. I want to always be doing something that is creative and serving other people. So I'll be doing something like this till I'm 80 something. So I might as well enjoy it. And I might as well, if I have my money together, this is always going to make me more money. I don't have a scarcity mindset in terms of money, but it's not my goal, right? So I think so many people, when it's their goal, that's what you focus on. But my goal is how to help and how to do the work that we need to do. Mm-hmm. So I think when you can get away from that, it's going to help you actually build the thing the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny too, when I was talking to you, Vince, this was when we had these phone conversations, and you were the first person, because I've had people do this to me. They're like, oh, Carla, do you have ADHD? I've had people say that to me. And I've never said that to anybody else, but sometimes I'll pick up on things. And I think I actually asked you that. I kind of sort of point blank. I'm like, do you have something going on, Vince?
Absolutely.
And you're like, yes, I do. Right. And it was so funny. And it was kind of affirming to me. I'm like, hey, I'm starting to figure this stuff out. So I think that's something that you and I have in common too. We love to talk, but I think it's also it's just the way we're wired, I think, too, to do things maybe in a certain way. But how do you find kind of having this sort of ADHD mind? How has that kind of helped you, Vince? Or on the other hand, how has it kind of maybe limited you?
It has helped and hurt. I can tell you that.
Me too.
I think I have an energy level and an excitement level that exceeds a lot of other people. And people will tell me that, and I'll have to tone it down, right? Slow it down. I'll give you a story about that. When I was working at the newspaper, it was in Indiana, and I'm a New Yorker moving to Indiana. Like, the pace was really hard for me to begin with. And my boss, who was an amazing photographer, he was a National Geographic award. It was unbelievable. He ran the paper. It was perfect. And he came over to me, he asked me how an assignment went. And I was all excited about it. And I ran through the whole thing, telling every little thing that happened. He's staring at me, and I'm thinking he's taking it all in. And then at the end of it, I finally stopped talking. He looks at me and goes, I don't understand a word that you just said. And I was like, slow it down. So there's good and that bad that comes. Like, you can have a lot of energy, and people are very attracted to the fact that you're excited about what you're doing. But I think you and I were talking about it with ADHD or whatever it is. There are highs and lows that come from it that the person that doesn't have it doesn't understand. So your high energy that really can benefit you for a 3-hour football game or a 8-hour wedding or a 2-hour coaching session that you could really go in there. The lows that can come from that are lower than what most people understand either. So you could drop a lot. So there was depression that came with it. There was uncertainty. There was sadness. There was just, why could I be so good on Monday and feel so crappy on Wednesday? And that would happen a lot. And my poor wife, because I think our kids have it too, so she's in for a run for the next 25 years. But just understanding this, but like, as we record, like, you're recording a podcast, and people who don't record podcasts don't understand, but there's like these highs and lows level. Any type of audio file, there's a high and low. When you go there, you get into these red zones, top and bottom. And what I finally learned when I was recording an episode, I'm like, that's me. That's me. Because when I stay even cool, I can have energy, I can have excitement. But when I start hitting that red level up top, or I go 2 down, I hit the red, those are the danger zones. So I quite literally think about that audio file when I get into this. And Andy Andrews said something really well. He goes, when he was in this mode, he's a great author. He said, you can't always believe what you think. And that's what I have to tell me because I'm like, if I felt so good on last week and things were going so well, how can it feel like the whole thing's coming apart right now, even though it's not, right? And that's where I say, my wife tells me, you can't always believe what you think, because in 2 days, you're going to be feeling better. But in the moment, it feels like it's all over. Balancing that as an ADHD entrepreneur was one of the most important things I could have ever done.
Yeah, same with me, totally. Yeah. It's just like, oh, this is so, everything's going bad. And then, something happens or whatever. And then everything's amazing. I'm up on, the mountaintop, and yeah, the valleys are low and the mountains are high. So when you're high, it's like amazing. But when you're low, it's like not very cool.
And you wind up, I don't know about you, but you wind up doing things. Like, I've literally killed businesses in that mode. I don't want to do it anymore. Done. Like, no, that's the all or nothing personality. Yeah. It rarely is beneficial. And you need to be able to say, relax, relax, buddy. Just calm down. Yeah. Give it a day, give it 2 days. Yeah. And, there's times it worked out, but there's times like, even relationship wise, to be completely honest with you, the busted relationships in my life have been generally my fault during those low times, or maybe those high times where I said something that I was feeling, and I wish I would have said, you can't always believe what you think. And then it led to different problems. Luckily, it's evened out over the last 5-10 years, and relationships are so much better, but I ruin relationships in this way too. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think that I'm able to catch myself, but definitely like the highs. Sometimes I'm up here and I have to read the situation, and I'm like, hey, Carla, just because you're up here and you want to do 50 jumping jacks like on the top of a tower and scream and play the music loud, you got to read the situation and see if everybody else is okay with that. And some people might be like, whoa, Carla, tone it down, So then it's kind of like staying below the red, and then same thing with a low, right? It's like, oh, I just feel so horrible and everything, life's ending, whatever. And I think to be like, just wait it out, Carla. I often say I got to sleep on it, right? So somebody might give me a suggestion or an idea. And if I know that I'm not in a very good place to make a good decision, I'll just say, I'm going to sleep on that. I'll get back to you. Because usually if I make a decision right away, if I'm in a high place, sometimes I overcommit. If I'm in a low place, I miss opportunities. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. And I think even if you don't have ADHD, I think this is a good lesson for anybody, because we all have those highs and lows regardless, right? So, yeah.
And my wife has a great line. She says, wait to worry. Just wait.
Yeah.
You don't worry. Just wait a little. I'm not good at waiting.
Yeah.
But it was true. You come back and you go play with the kids a little bit. And then, I'll give you an example. We photographed a wedding, and right after our third son was born, and Elizabeth had a rough pregnancy. So we finally got to go out together on a date. We're going to see U2 in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. First date night out. And 2 hours before we left, we did a wedding, and the bride of the wedding emailed me just upset with a bunch of different pictures. She didn't like the way she looked here. Completely ruined my night. It was in my head the entire time. We went to the concert, first time out, and I can't tell you how long, and I didn't enjoy it. I was so preoccupied, like, oh, she's gonna, the whole highs and lows. Well, we get back, ruined night, didn't really enjoy it. And about 2 days later, she goes, oh, I just wasn't in a good mood that day. I didn't mean, like, I'm fine. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, it just ruined my night. I did it to myself. She didn't do it. I did it. But that can happen to you if you let it. So it's like, wait to worry.
Yeah.
Hard lesson to learn.
And sometimes wait to respond. Like the same kind of thing, right? Like if you want to respond on an email or a phone, just wait a day and then respond, and maybe even like talk to some people about it. How's the best way to respond, whatever. Because sometimes if I just do something in the heat of the moment, it's not always the best decision.
We try to institute the 24-hour rule on anything emotional.
Yeah.
Where it's like, wait 24 hours. You can't respond for 24 hours because it's not hardly ever the things that you say, it's the way you say it. Yeah. And in email, and like Elizabeth can say it to me, it's like your tone. I'm like, what do you mean? Like the words that you said weren't bad. It's just the tone in which you say it that just annoys me. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And but through email or text, you don't know. There's no like sarcasm font. There should be. If anybody can come up with a sarcasm font for Facebook, I'll buy it, because it's like sometimes you need to realize I'm just joking, or I'm saying it kind of. If I said it out loud with a smile on my face, you'd be like, but I type it, they get mad. I'm like, don't you realize I didn't mean it that way? And then I screw it up.
Well, you're one of the few people, because I went and I listened to some of your podcasts, and you're one of the few people I didn't actually have to put it on, like speed it up, because most often with podcasts, it goes too slow for me, and I need it faster. So for you, I was like, hey, I can listen to this at like regular speed, and if I speed it up, you sound like a chipmunk. Down. Yeah. So that was kind of cool, but that's good, and I can really feel that. I think it's a gift because there is so much energy behind it. I know people tell me all the time, Carla, I love your energy, right? And I feel like that probably has a lot to do with my ADHD brain. So I can be thankful for that, thankful for that. So I am.
And I think we are uncommon in this world, that people that don't have it find us kind of fun for a period of time, right?
For a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, for a little while. If you can keep it, if you can keep it toned down a bit, it could be a lot longer. But I think I know a lot of people that don't have that. They use that as inspiration. Like, you lift me up every morning. Like, it's a daily podcast. It's 5 minutes. I don't think you want to hear me for 60 minutes a day, right? My poor wife, right? But it's like, for 5 minutes, it's like, it's the shot in the arm that they want and they need, and then we can kind of move on with our day. So that, I think it's a benefit that I think if I was more monotone and quiet and slow, like I went through those periods, like when I was down, or certain times I'm taking a medication that I wasn't feeling certain, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't feel like I have energy, and like I wouldn't want to be a normal person. I think is what I realized. I wouldn't want to not have this, because I enjoy the roller coaster more than I want just steadiness, if that makes any sense.
It does too. Like I absolutely love that I have the energy and that I can bring the thunder. But when I crash, I do kind of crash. So it's like just kind of managing that. And that's what I've had to learn, is just have some balance in my life, set some boundaries. I need that really bad.
That's the beauty. When you learn to control it, it's a wonderful life, because like you get to enjoy the energy of it, but you get to realize I'm not gonna participate in the downside of it very much.
Right. Yeah.
And I wish I would have learned that at 20. That's something I wish. Like, oh, what would you wish you would learn? Like, how to make money? No, I wish I would have learned how to balance that when I was 16, 17, 18, and had less of the angst that came with it.
Yeah.
That's something I wish I would have learned.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Like, honestly, Vince, even just talking to you right now, it's like, it's kind of putting some things together for me. Like some of the things that you said, like wait to worry. A lot of that, like, I think I kind of naturally do that, Vince, but to actually articulate it. And my husband also has ADHD. So I think for us to both be able to like use these things to kind of help and guide each other is really good, because things can get pretty crazy in the Rand household. Like, we're both very driven, and it can just get like, everything's up here and then everything crashes down here. So usually we kind of take turns, one's low, one's high. So it works okay. But in general, it's just like, learning these things and understanding. What was another thing that you said? You said you can't believe
everything you're thinking.
Yeah. That's so important. Yeah.
Very helpful too. Because it's like, you realize, like, if you've ever gone through it, you think some crazy stuff sometimes. You think just some really kind of like down stuff, like down on yourself, down on others, and this and that. And like, that's not true. And when you can tell yourself that's not true, you realize, oh, I tell myself some lies during these times.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can understand that, then because we believe what we think, but what we think isn't always right. A lot of times it's not right at all. And then we react on what we think is right. And then the people go, what are you talking about? Where'd you come up with that?
Yeah.
Well, I thought it. Well, that's a pretty bad way of going about it. So to be able to curb that is huge.
I think teenagers have that a lot too. Not to like make us sound like we're not very, but like a lot of teenagers, they're very up, they're very down, they're kind of all over the place. And I think that that's something that would be really good for them too, or anybody that's really up and down, just to be like, yeah, you can't, just because you're thinking it doesn't mean that it's true. So
totally,
don't put too much weight in that. Like I know I've got this one gal that will often message me when she's feeling really down, and I basically have to say that. I say, your mind is here, but that's not actually reality. So don't give it so much power. You know what I mean?
And with teenagers, the hormones, and they're not, mentally there yet. They haven't grown up yet. I remember it. And I remember like every relationship was like the end of the world if it didn't go well. Right.
Yeah.
And then you're 27, you're dating, you kind of go, whatever, wasn't a good fit. Right. But at 16, it's like, oh, the world's over. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It really is.
It is tough, but it's good to have these lessons. So what else would you want to say, Vince? Like anything else that you kind of want to share, like just a message kind of to the world, podcast listeners? What do they need to know, maybe, Vince, that you think would be helpful?
I think there's so many different things, right? We can talk about it. I'm not good with this question because I'm like, you're making me pick one out of a million, right?
Give me like the top 3 or something like that.
I just think really living life on your terms in a generous way towards others is, I always thought it was just live life on your terms, right? But live life on your terms can really not be the best for everybody else, right? I want to live life on my terms, but I want to sleep until 2 o'clock and I want to eat whatever I want and I want to not be responsible. That's not great, right? But if you can find a way to balance living the life that you want in a way that is beneficial to other people and serves other people, that gives you purpose, it's the greatest situation. Because first of all, you get to be an example. If you have kids, to be an example for your kids. Like we homeschool our kids and they have their own businesses. 16, 13, the 10-year-old wants a business, is figuring it out because he's watching his brothers make money and watching them do things. Our oldest has like tarantulas and scorpions, and he goes out and he, shows them to people and he gets tips for it. He gets like between $100 and $200 a night here in Florida in tips. It's crazy. Like I was in the wrong business. And I'll be honest with you, he's got like all these girls surrounding him. And I'm like, if I would have known at 15 that a tarantula would have got girls to come over to me, I would have had like 8 tarantulas. I had no idea that was like the answer to it. So he's got that, but he's building a website. He's building a blog. He just got an email from the magazine, a local magazine, which moved here a month ago, that wants to do an interview about him. So it's like, do you see what you're doing here? You are taking your passion and what you love that other people made fun of you about for years because you like bugs. And now you're making all these people, helping these people get over their fears. Like literally people go on vacation down here in Florida. We go over to Siesta Key and they say, I came here to go to the beach and my highlight was I held a tarantula for the first time and got over my fear. And I'm like, Andrew, do you see what's going on here? Like you are. So if you can blend those things, people are like, oh, what are you going to, it was really funny because at one of the times a guy came up to him and gave him $10. He said, if you keep doing this is going to pay for college. And then I looked at him and he said, actually, if you keep doing this, you won't have to go to college. I'm like, that's it. Because it's like, there's no need to go. If you can figure this out along the way, you've got the answer to it. And now you keep going because he's figuring it out way quicker than I ever did. So if you can blend those things, and I think a lot of people think, oh, just go after your passion. It's not just go after your passion. I don't care about your passion. I'm not going to buy something because you're passionate about it. I'm going to buy something because you're passionate and you're helping me. And I think that's where kind of it gets lost. So if that's a takeaway that helps, then that's cool.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, it's so true because people, I'm passionate about this, but you're right. Like, can you actually help people specifically with that? Is that actually a good business model? Or is that just something that you happen to love? I think if you're creative enough, you can usually find a way, but you don't want to have to force it too much. And maybe it's not the right time. You know what I mean?
But a lot of times people don't think of it or they don't want to do it. They don't want to sell. Like I'm passionate about digging dirt. Well, wonderful. Now go tear up your parents' yard. They're not going to be happy, but if you could use that to dig trenches or dig a pool or something like where you're actually being a service to others, now you have yourself something that you get your physical labor in, you do something you love doing, and you're serving somebody. I don't think the tie-in is that hard, but I think it comes into like, then people don't want to charge for it. Like then it gets into the business skills of it. And that's where I go. That's where I get really excited. Like, okay, let's put these things together and make it go. And then I could talk about that stuff all day long.
So I want to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
What got, just because I'm curious, when did you realize that what you were doing was like a business? Like, when did you kind of figure out, hey, like I'm running a business and I'm being successful at it. And this is great.
It's funny because like I never thought about it. Like the photography thing, which went on. I just wanted to be a photographer, and what I realized was by the end of it, I was doing it just for me, and that's when this idea. I wrote the book. I was basically like, I would go to parties and everybody would be like, "Tell me about the time you photographed Muhammad Ali's birthday party, or what's it like meeting Tom Brady?" Blah, blah. And then I realized without the photography, I wasn't very interesting. I wasn't really helpful. So what happened was I went to a wedding, and I was coaching the DJ on his business because he was a great DJ, but he was telling me how he's struggling in business. And we're sitting down there for dinner, eating salmon, and I'm coaching him on this. And he's like all into it. And then the wedding comes back on. We got to go photograph the wedding. And I remember at that moment, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I want to do this. I want to stay here and do this. I actually feel value from doing this. And I went home and told my wife, I said, I'm transitioning out. I'm burnt. I'm bored, whatever. I said, I want to do what I did with that guy. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, I want to coach these people on it. So that's when the first time it felt like a business. That's what we do now. So essentially, we killed the photography business about 4 or 5 years ago. 6-figure business, just said, we're winding it down. And I wanted to start helping entrepreneurs build businesses. That's what I want to do. I loved it. I could do it all day long. And that's when it was really like, this is more than just, doing something that I want to do. This is using our skills to help other people do those things. So I don't think I ever thought, even though I knew it was a business with photography, it wasn't until we started doing coaching and masterminds and memberships that I was like, we have to think like the business now. We have to structure it that way. So it was a long time coming. I think I knew it, but it didn't hit me till probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's cool. Right on. So where do people go to find you, Vince, if they kind of just want to learn more about you, maybe check out your books, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. First thing I would say is the podcast. That's the most fun thing for me. It's a daily short form podcast. As you listen to, it's fast and it's quick. It's about 5 to 7 minutes each episode. There's no ads. There's no intro or outro. I don't even say my name. I just get started. I figure if you know what you're listening to, I don't need to waste your time with my name. Let's just go. So it's called the Total Life Freedom Podcast. And then the website's totallifefreedom.com. That's where we have any of our information and the audio book from my book, which I give away for free. So not asking you to buy anything. If you want it, you can go to the website, totallifefreedom.com/F2F book, and you can download the entire book audio version there. So trying to be generous.
Yeah.
Trying to follow the name of the book.
Awesome. Good. Well, thanks so much, Vince. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And like usual, we could just keep going on and talk business and talk life, and it would just be so fun. But yeah, it's really fun talking to you. So thank you for taking the time today, Vince. I know you're busy, and I just really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to just affirm you like how much I've enjoyed our conversations and how great you are in terms of asking questions and being curious, and your energy. It really is kind of contagious, and it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you. Yeah, your energy is too. I think that's probably why we enjoy talking so much. Good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Vince.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. I absolutely love that you joined us. I love being able to record these, and I love our guests. It's been so much fun. So thank you. Please like it, share it, comment, do all of the things that you feel like you want to do if you enjoyed this podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And this podcast has been brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. So everything that we do locally with our workouts, with our group nutrition coaching, and with all of the other fun events and stuff that we run, we put all of that online. So now you can access everything, even if you're not locally, don't live in our area. So my coaches and I and all my staff, the whole team, we are putting so much work into these workouts. We're filming 5 fresh workouts every single week so that you never have to do the same workout twice. We're also doing group nutrition and personal nutrition coaching so that you get exactly what you need. And you know what the best part is? It's the community. The absolute best part is just knowing that you have the support, that you have the encouragement, that you have everything you need to succeed. So go to powerfitnessonline.com.